Hello everybody, this is the Chubby Funster. This is part 2 of my dive into the Sunless Citadel, a 3rd edition D&D module written by Bruce Cordell. In part 1 we explored the fortress level, and now we're going deeper underground to the grove level. The descent brings you to room 42. There are a lot of dangerous things here and a wandering monster table. Again, they're spaced out fairly well and they don't cluster up too bad. Only one actual trap here. It's a fire trap spell in a book, but the briars that fill the grove are kind of like traps. They make the players move slowly. You take damage if you move too quick. I think that should be treated as a trap, so I'm going to code it that way. And this makes sense. Why would they be making a bunch of traps on a level that they control 100%? And consistent with the fortress level, there are a ton of interesting things here as well. But I did find this level had much fewer interesting interaction points like the mephit barrel that was upstairs. And of course, the treasure blows, but I'm being told regularly in the comments that this is a result of 3rd edition and later D&D designs that emphasize expected wealth and power levels. Yet another reason to play old school style games. But I will leave that for another discussion. I think not giving out treasures sucks, regardless of your gaming chassis. Dungeon delving shouldn't be an altruistic adventure. Unlike the very creatively designed Fortress level, this one is a relatively simple vector design. And it would have been so easy to add more movement flexibility here just by adding doors or corridors in a few key locations, but as designed, this feels unnecessarily linear. Room 42 is a giant compost heap. I like the general idea. I would just put it off of the main passageway and not make it a place where people traipse through. I also don't like the mixing of undead and animated plants, especially in a room that goblins and bugbear will also be frequently coming through. The villain is a 4th level druid. Why would the undead be serving him? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Room 43 is the home of Balsac, the bugbear. Oh wait, Balsag, the bugbear. Sorry, my bad. I wonder if he hails from the city of Ashen Shaft in majestic Wilderlands. Remember, folks, name your fantasy stuff so that it won't be picked on when it goes to middle school. Anyway, I like that he has a catchphrase. And he's a pretty fearsome surprise for PCs when they first get down here. I also like that he has his own little entrance to the Underdark where he goes hunting. That's good stuff. Room 44 is a rift that smells like sulfur. Room 45 is a Thaqua, I think I'm saying that right, Thaqua lair. And room 46 is an empty chamber left behind by the dragon cult builders. I feel like this whole area was a real missed opportunity. There could have been some kind of geological thing here. It doesn't have to be lava. It could be steam vents or mud pots. And if the rift creates a barrier of movement to the goblins, then that would let you put something really cool in room 46 instead of nothing, as written. This is kind of a letdown. The Thaqua is going to be an easy kill for any party that's gotten this far. I've read that name so many times. This is the first time I've ever had to say it. I think it's a Thaqua. Anyway. Room 47 is an alchemical slash hospital kind of location. This thing is pretty good for goblins to be inhabiting. I think it's a win. I also like that there are multiple exits and entrances. There are even some goblins monitoring the effects of an experimental elixir by the villain by giving it to a dire rat. That's pretty cool. This goes to my criticisms in prior videos about goblin competence. These goblins are appropriately represented as backward and inept. They don't have the skills of higher humanoids like humans or elves or dwarves or gnomes even. They produce shitty and weak material. Goblin stuff should always be crappy and ineffective. If the goblins control a sturdy, strong bridge or they have nice armor, it is only because they stole it from somebody else. Room 48 is a pair of 2 long hallways. The GM can put the Bugbear Gardener in either one. I think the setup is okay and there's a lot of good description here, but I would turn this Bugbear into a Hobgoblin. There were Hobgoblins up on the fortress level, but there are none down here, which Doesn't seem to be right. So I don't think all these doors should be closed either. This is a common issue in a lot of dungeons. In an occupied structure like this, tons of these doors should be open, cracked, broken, and so on. Room 49 is another multi-part room. Again, I like the concept, but I would sub out the bugbear for a hobgoblin. And I'm thinking about it now, I would probably use a hobgoblin for everything on this level that is currently coded as a goblin, and I would not use any skeletons. I think skeletons are great as a remnant of the prior time, but not as a servant of a druid, even a fallen one. Room 50 is one of the coolest ones on this level. Unfortunately, the positioning is terrible. There is a dragon statue in this room with a redstone tile in front of it. If you get within 5 feet of that tile, a shadow emerges from behind the statue to attack you. You can read the inscription and say the right thing in Draconic, and you get a temporary charisma bonus, similar to the dragon shrines and fountains and stuff that were upstairs. I think all that's great. But this is positioned on the only pathway to get to the grove. The current inhabitants would have already encountered this shadow. It has no reason to be allied to the druid. This room really should be switched out with 46 and tied to the changes I suggested to add some geologic stuff in the rift area and make that difficult to get to. That would explain why this is still undiscovered. Room 51 is also a good room. A nice little library with some treasure in it. I like the dragon lore book, although I liked it less when I found the exact same thing in the Room 53 that's like a druid lore book. But maybe innovate some more than that. But I would move this off the beaten path as well, or if you made the change that I suggested, so there's a pathway that goes a faster way to get to the grove. Nobody's even going this way or hasn't gone this way in a while. I think that would also be good. Room 52 is just a passageway, but it's a good example of the kind of missed opportunities we see a lot. This passes underneath 49D, which is one of the arboreums. There could be a ton of roots down here, maybe some skeletons, not like undead skeletons, just regular skeletons mixed into the roots. And that would give some good foreshadowing on the kind of creepy nature of the tree in the grove. But as I mentioned, this is the only path back to the grove is going to be highly trafficked. So really have to change that in order to make this place any cooler. Room 53 is also a good room. Another library, this time one that the villain is actively maintaining. I really like Fire Trap. It's a great spell. I wish more dungeon designers would actually use the spells that are in the book. Rather than coming up with some brand new thing. A lot of times you can just have the NPC intelligently use resources that they're also available to the player. You don't have to come up with some new invention every time. There's tons of great stuff. How many spells are there in 3rd edition? Jesus. Don't just hand them out as scrolls. Have an intelligent enemy use them on the players. Now, room 54 is the entrance to the grove itself. There are some goblins here and twig blights just beyond that could get potentially drawn in. There's some foreshadowing here to the tree up ahead as well. I think that's good. You want to kind of set the table for the big bad fight. Room 55 is full of briars and twig blights. The briars are basically a movement penalty for characters that aren't small or a druid. And if you go too fast, you take a point of damage every 10 feet. It's a decent obstruction. I like it. I really like when dungeon designers put in some kind of effect that simulates magic or a trap or something like that, but it's a physical thing. And it has a similar mechanical effect, and it makes it so that not everything that changes the game rules in some way has to be some supernatural thing. However, this does raise a big criticism I have of this chamber as a whole. There is only one exit from this area down a narrow hallway that leads to the underpass at 52. So upon running into this formidable barrier, the PCs could just retreat and besiege the villain. Considering the biological nature of the opposition on this level, I would presume many PCs are going to become loaded to bear with lots of flaming oil and other supplies. This is one more reason to create the kind of connecting passages that I advocated for earlier. Um, Villains generally don't like to paint themselves into a corner. You don't have to do the kind of stupid video gamey thing where at the very back of their lair they've got a passageway that heads up to the dungeon entrance. That's stupid. But they are intelligent creatures. Now, room 56 is a beast of a place with a ton of detail, so let's approach it in sections. Um, there's some tough opposition here. A powerful druid with 2 mind-controlled adventurers, a giant frog, and 3 twig blights. The tree doesn't attack, but it has hit points here because if you attack it, you can mess with the twig blights, and so it needs to have some. It's kind of like having a hit points for a door or whatever. It's not a monster. And then they employ the most cliche trick in the book, the villain monologue. He reveals his elaborate master plan, tells you everything. After all, you could never escape him. Wahaha. But they provide no way for the PCs to bargain with this guy, come to an agreement of any kind. He demands surrender or death. They don't have anything he wants. He doesn't really have anything they want except stuff, and he's causing evil or whatever. They want to stop that. Has anyone ever run a game where the PCs surrendered to this kind of thing? I don't know, it's getting crazy cliche in video games where you get in there and the guy tells you everything and then you kill him. Um, this is just a situation where the writer he wants a way to tell you everything before you kill this guy. They're worried you're not going to find out the true story unless you learn everything from this NPC, and it's just so fucking lame. This guy has no arc of redemption. There's no path back from evil, even though there probably could be in this case because he's a druid. Still, I'm not necessarily convinced there should be, but if the NPC is going to try to parlay, try to talk to the party, they should at least have an offer that is somewhat intriguing, not surrender or I'll kill you. Anyway, this is a big, evocative fight, lots of things to love. Unique attacks from the frogs, stronger than goblinoid opposition in the mind-controlled NPCs. Druid abilities, all sorts of stuff. I feel like giving a few tactical tips to the GM is good, but there is way too much micromanaging in these tips. I think a good practice is to just create bullet points to help the GM remember certain things, like this weapon has this particular magic power, whatever. So it's easy to miss that kind of stuff, and then you don't realize it until after the fight's over. So what is the Gulthias Tree exactly? Well, it produces 2 fruits a year, one of which is healing and one of which is killing. But the townspeople already knew about that. You can find that out at the beginning, and I mean, they've been buying the fruits from the goblins. The seeds that grow from the fruit produces twig blights. That's why they've been selling them to the townsfolk to get it up in the world and let it germinate and grow, and then they bring the twig blights back down here. The tree can also suck in up to 4 supplicants to serve as mind-controlled zombie-type monsters. I think that's actually probably its coolest power, not the fruit. It'd be cool to think about, like, what would these mind-controlled servants of the tree actually want beyond being like zombie ants that are following the life path of another creature. I think there's a lot of things that can be explored here. But there is no explanation of how Balak controls the twig blights, or the skeletons for that matter. Why did these things follow his orders? He has normal druid spells. He's level 4. He has no magic item that grants him any special powers. Nothing. And this is important because it leaves no way for anyone else to take over this factory of evil, so to speak. The NPCs can't be tempted because they don't know how. The PCs can't be tempted because there's no way to do it. There is this brain dead philosophy that has infected a large portion of the tabletop role playing hobby that wants to just remove evil from the game, it seems like. Everyone can just be friends and love each other. These people are idiots. Heroism is having the power to do evil, but not do evil. You have to choose to use your strength for good. If you don't have any strength, if you can't do anything, you're not a hero, you just suck. If only we had some kind of inspirational literature or films that could dive into these issues. Man, wouldn't that be cool if we did? The conclusion section of this module only describes two possible outcomes: failure to stop Balak or chopping down the tree. And I think it's important to look at the things that the module designer puts out there as suggestions and possibilities and stuff like that, because it shows you what they think is going to happen, right? But what if the PCs don't do either of these things? What if they lock down the whole level and, put traps or, actual physical locks, right? Block everything off. And then they come back down every twice a year to harvest the apples. And then after they use them, they smash the seeds. Because that's what I do. Free resources forever. There's no requirement you have to tend this tree. There's no fertilizer you got to bring in. There's nothing. But I am grateful that this module provided me with one of the best written examples of the brain rot that has happened at Wizards of the Coast, the inability to understand human motivations, drives, and actions. And that's, should the player characters die in their quest, their absence will be noted by those who knew them. Well, no shit. Now, I don't disagree necessarily. I think PC deaths should be noted and more people should go down into the dungeon. I'm okay with TPKs, and playing the game should have some real risks, but damn, player and character motivations count. They should factor into your dungeon design. People don't go into dangerous situations and risk life and limb for no reason. They don't walk away from free resources for no reason. The inability to understand this is a massive theory of mind failure on the part of not just this module, but dozens and dozens of Wizards of the Coast modules. We are not combat robots. Anyway, let's review this level as written, and then I'm going to propose some changes to the whole module. Now, there's a decent mix of combat encounters with reasonable spacing. There are a few places where the PCs are going to get mobbed by enemies, except really it's unavoidable in the final approach to the Grove. And there's some cool environmental ideas. An underground tree with fruit and the ability to absorb people is pretty damn cool. I like the briars. I like the fungal garden concepts. And the overarching story logic is sound. The tree creates fruit. They're trying to get the fruit to the surface so the seeds can germinate. That makes sense. The fruits are a decent magic item on their own, and there's a mix of opposition in the final battle that's pretty good. Twig blights, humans, magic, even a giant frog. But this is contrasted by weak treasure, a pointless villain monologue, and no final explanation of how the druid is controlling all of this shit. And if he isn't actually controlling the twig blights and they're just cooperating with him, why is the tree controlling him? None of this is explained. But the module's written. We can't go back in time and change this stuff, but we do know how to change things now. That's the great thing about role-playing games. We don't need roads. So what can we do? Well, I would start with this sarcophagus. I think actually the key to this entire module is in this sarcophagus, in the lower vector of the fortress level, with the weird troll elf priest guy in it. Now, as written, he is in this sarcophagus, and when released, you just fight him. There's nothing in the module to suggest he has goals, objectives, anything. He doesn't have anything to bargain or parlay over. He's just a weird-ass dude with the highest challenge rating in the entire place. Interesting. And I'm going to use him as an example of how you can turn lemons into lemonade. This entire place was created for another purpose by dragon cultists. These are just the current inhabitants, except that troll elf dragon priest guy. He is the only one that knows the secrets of this place. Let's use it. The dark magic that he was dabbling in, that they entombed him for, let's say the dragon cult didn't even understand it. Let's say he actually created the Gulthias Tree and he still controls it, even from stasis. This guy is the mastermind behind it all. The druid is not a free agent. He is the first supplicant, killed by some undead that were commanded to defend the tree from the dragon priest. And through the power of that tree, the dragon priest is now trying to build up a powerful force of more supplicants so that he can come back. But he can't open that sarcophagus without dispel magic. Even with the druid and the goblins and the adventurer supplicants, he still can't seem to get his hands on it. But he keeps sending these guys out to find scrolls, and they keep coming back with crappy level 1, level 2 scrolls, and that's not going to cut it. And unbeknownst to the dragon cultists who put him in there, he was wearing a magic item, maybe a crown or a ring or a necklace or whatever, and that allows him to control the tree and command the twig blights and so on, all from his little prison, and they never knew the entire time that it was him, that fucking dragon elf troll priest, whatever he is. You bastard. And with this simple fix, everything now makes sense. The kobolds have a key that the goblins need to get into the dragon priest's tomb. The goblins don't know that they need it. The kobolds don't know that they have it. That's the real reason for this faction war. And the druid is spreading the fruit to try to create more twig blights because that's what he's being controlled to do by the tree, which is controlled by the dragon priest. And the druid doesn't even know how or why these things work. He can't go into a long monologue because his mind is blank. He is an empty vessel. And the Underdark keeps providing a steady stream of stupid and inept followers unable to find or use dispel magic on behalf of the dragon priest. So you have this really intelligent guy trapped in a troll's body, trapped in a coffin, basically, trapped in 2 levels full of idiots. He is surrounded by idiots everywhere, and he can't get away. Oh, and make these simple changes to the map to facilitate movement flow, and you're done. Ain't that better? You're welcome. So that's all for the Sunless Citadel. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you can get some good value out of this module. Chubby Funster out.